Hello and welcome to the Death Row and Executions channel, where I mostly cover an upcoming execution to take place soon. My name is Paco Rivera. You can also follow me on Facebook for updates and more Death Row news. There will be a link to my Facebook in the description below. Also, check out my other channel here on YouTube called The Maximum Sentence, where I cover recent crimes and convictions. There will be a link for that as well. These are the most difficult cases to present. I mean, every murder is tragic, but it is especially sad, especially heartbreaking when it comes to the age of the victim, as was the case here. These are also the videos that get me in the most trouble with YouTube, because YouTube doesn't seem to understand that I don't create content for the Disney Channel. And to prevent this video from getting shadow banned, or worse, I have to be very careful with the wording that I use. This here is Jamie Rose Bolin. She was born in August of the year 1995 and was killed in April 2006. So you know her age. And hopefully YouTube's algorithm isn't also doing the math. Jamie's parents had separated a year or two earlier, and they had shared custody of Jamie. At the time of her death, she was staying with her father, an auto mechanic named Curtis Bolin, in Purcell, Oklahoma, a suburban town just outside of Oklahoma City with a population of about just 6,000 residents at the time. A town that had always been considered very safe to live in. Also living in Purcell, in the same apartment complex as Mr. Curtis Bolin, was 26-year-old Kevin Ray Underwood. This monster that you see here is possibly one of the most vile, depraved, disgusting, evil animals to ever walk this planet. I can't even refer to him as human because he doesn't deserve that classification. Sometime around the year 2004, 2 years before the murder, Kevin Underwood had been blogging on his computer about his fantasies of kidnapping someone, brutalizing the body, torturing the person by sticking needles in the eyeballs, and other forms of torture, chopping up the body much in the way a butcher at the meat store does, and then cooking and engaging in cannibalism, eating the body. And whatever remained, such as bones and organs, he would find a way to dispose of. And he made it clear in his writings and confessions that he would later give to investigators, is that his fantasy called for as much of this happening while his victim was still alive. Apparently, not too many people were reading his blog or didn't take it seriously, because his blogs, while he was using a fictitious username, were never reported. Unfortunately for Kevin Underwood, his main fantasy of having the victim still alive while torturing and brutalizing the victim had failed, because he hadn't counted on the struggle and fight that his victim would put up, resulting in his need to kill the victim before he can carry out his diabolical plans. Underwood would later confess to investigators that he had planned the kidnapping of Jamie Rose Bolin for several months, going through all the details in his mind of what he plans to do to her. He spent those past months grooming Jamie to gain her trust. He wanted to appear like the friendly neighbor. At one point, he was outside his doorway holding his pet rat. By the way, I learned while researching this case that rats are actually a popular pet. I didn't know that. Anyway, Jamie, who was known to love animals, saw Kevin holding the rat and asked if she can pet it, and he allowed her. According to Underwood, there were times that he was sitting in the living room with the apartment door wide open as Jamie was going by, and she went inside asking again if she can pet the rat. He would also sometimes put on the SpongeBob cartoon show that she liked on his TV, and she would sit there and watch for a while before leaving. All during this time period, Underwood had known that Jamie would be the victim that he would use to live out his fantasies. It was only a matter of what day that would happen. That day turned out to be April 12th of the year 2006, 4 days before Easter Sunday. Kevin Underwood was off from his work that day. Jamie Rose had attended Purcell Intermediate School earlier, and she had plans of going to the library sometime after school. She arrived home and went upstairs to her apartment and changed clothing. Underwood would later say that he intended to grab her that day before she went upstairs to make it look like she never made it home from school, but he missed his chance. And now that she had changed clothing, everyone would know that she was home, but he proceeded with his plan anyway. Underwood would say that as Jamie was going past his door again, she asked if she can go inside and pet the rat. There are theories, however, that he had lured her into his home another way. Once inside and sitting on the floor petting the rat, Underwood grabbed a hold of a large, heavy wooden cutting board and slammed it on her head as hard as he could, hoping that to cause her to become unconscious. But Jamie immediately began crying loudly from the strike to her head. When Underwood realized that the cutting board had knocked her out, he began striking Jamie hard repeatedly with the board. And now she was yelling out, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," possibly wondering what she had done wrong. According to Underwood, Jamie then began running around the room trying to avoid him, and he jumped on top of her and took her to the floor. Meanwhile, Jamie was trying fiercely to escape his clutches and put up quite a struggle. Underwood told the investigator that he couldn't believe how strong she was. He found himself battling and struggling for nearly 15 to 20 minutes, at which point he finally made the decision to cover her nose and mouth and then strangled her to death. Underwood then went outside and brought Jamie's bicycle inside, and he looked at it. He stated that he realized at that point that it was going to be a lot harder to get rid of the bicycle than to get rid of a body. He would later dismantle the bike to pieces, and he stashed it under his bed. He was highly disappointed that his ultimate plans were ruined. However, he proceeded to do just about everything to the body that he had planned regardless, even though the victim wasn't alive as he had wanted. When Mr. Curtis Bolin arrived home, he saw that Jamie wasn't home yet from the library. The library was contacted, and he learned that she had never arrived there. He now became extremely worried and contacted police. He also contacted Jamie's mother to let her know that their daughter is missing. An Amber Alert for Jamie Rose Bolin was issued, and police and FBI and hundreds of volunteers searched for Jamie over the following days, a search that included dogs and helicopters. Roadblocks were set up around the apartment complex where Jamie lived, and everyone going in or out was questioned. On Friday, April 16, Good Friday, 2 days after Jamie was reported missing, Kevin Underwood's father went to the apartment complex to pick him up at his home, and as they were driving away, they were stopped by police at one of the checkpoints. The officer mentioned the missing girl, and the old man said, "Yeah, my son lives here too." The officer asked Kevin Underwood to step out of the car for some questions. The officer would later say that Underwood appeared confused and deceptive when replying to questions, and the officer became suspicious. Then Underwood was asked if he had seen Jamie Rose on Wednesday afternoon after she got out of school. He stated that he saw her briefly as she was riding away from the apartment complex on her bicycle. As this would now make Kevin Underwood possibly the last known person to see Jamie Rose Bolin alive, he was asked to be taken to the police station for an interview, and he agreed. More red flags were raised during that interview by the way Underwood was answering questions. In particular, everyone else that was interviewed by investigators had described what Jamie was wearing. It was the clothing that she had worn to school that day. But here was Kevin Underwood describing completely different colored clothing, something nobody else saw. And what appeared even more suspicious was how Underwood had stated that he briefly glanced over at Jamie as she rode away on a bicycle. Yet, he was able to describe in precise detail every piece of clothing from head to toe that she was wearing. When the interview was over, Kevin Underwood was driven back to his apartment. One report states that it was actually FBI agents that had taken him there, and they walked him to the door. That's when one of the agents asked point blank if they can search his apartment to be certain that Jamie was not in there. This must be the point where Kevin Underwood knew that he was done. Without probable cause, he can legally decline a search. But if he does that, he knows he will shoot right up to the top as the prime suspect. And if that happens, there's no way out of this mess with police and FBI watching him closely. So he agreed to allow the search, possibly hoping that Jamie won't be found or her bicycle. Agents walked around inside the apartment as Kevin Underwood followed them around. They went into the bedroom, and soon thereafter an agent opened the closet door. On the floor of the closet was a large gray plastic container with its cover on it and duct tape wrapped all around the bin. I can only guess that bingo was the thought in the agent's head at that moment. He looked over at Kevin Underwood, who first said that the bin was loaded with comic books. But that agent proceeded to remove the duct tape and raise the cover on the container, where he spotted some clothing. At that point, he looked again at Kevin Underwood, who said, quote, "Go ahead and arrest me. She's in there. I chopped her up." Unquote. According to Jamie's obituary, she enjoyed singing, riding her bike, sewing, and watching movies. As I said before, she also loved animals, and she was well liked at school. Her friends all adored her. Kevin Ray Underwood is scheduled to be executed on December 19th. If nothing changes, that will be the last execution in this country this year. Please remember to hit the subscribe button for more death row and upcoming execution stories so that you're alerted when the next one comes out. You can also follow me on Facebook for updates. There will be a link to my Facebook in the description below. I would like to take this time to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a wonderful New Year. Please stay safe, and please be sure to keep your children safe. I'll see you next year. My name is Paco Rivera. Take care, and bye for now.